Hey guys, TommyBryson here, and this is not gonna be like a very long video. However, I'm here to show you guys around my $155 apartment here in the Dominican Republic. And by the way, I used to pay $167 per month, but I pay in peso. So basically saying because our currency, US currency, went up in value, it means I can pay my rent with less money now, which is actually super great. So as long as that keeps happening, I'm going to be paying less and less money in rent, which is actually pretty cool. However, I do have to warn you guys, okay? I am probably the cheapest, brokest YouTuber that you're ever going to see on the platform. If you are expecting me to show you around my $1 billion condo with the crazy view and the crazy stuff, you're not gonna get that, okay? I don't really spend money on things like I used to. You know, I did back in the day. I used to buy a lot of dumb things, but I no longer do. The more I learn about money, the more I realize that when you spend money on things, what actually ends up happening is you have those things, but you no longer have the money. And once you don't have the money, you don't have the freedom and the income you can actually get from those things. So for me personally, I don't really care about living in a 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom house or like a 40-bedroom, 40-bath. I can't use all the bathrooms. I am a guy who lives on his own. So to me, having more space like I did once before would just be a burden. More to clean, more to do, and it's just not for me. Now, let's talk about the apartment and where I actually live in the Dominican Republic, because automatically when you hear the number, wow, this guy only spends $155 a month, I'm going to be moving here. And the answer is no, it's not that simple. Yes, it is my real rent, it's how much I actually pay. But the reason I pay that much money is because where I live. It's not about the country where you choose to live, okay? It's about the location within that country where you choose to live, okay? There are certain parts in America where you can pay $500, $700 for a house, but there are other parts, for example, like New York, where you're paying like $1,600 for a studio. So it all depends on the location where you actually want to stay. Same thing here in Dominican Republic, okay? If you live in Punta Cana, or you live in Santo Domingo, or you live in some like fancy tourist place in a way, you will be spending a lot more money on rent. Anywhere from like $400, anywhere to $1,000, anywhere to $2,000, okay? Those things exist here too. But the reason I don't pay that much money is if you look on the map of Dominican Republic, where I live is called basically like San Pedro de Macoris. And in this location, you're not crazy far, but you're not close to anything. I mean, you need to know that, okay? So I am literally about an hour and some change away from the capital. And I'm literally also about, for example, like almost 2 hours away from Punta Cana. And I'm like 45 to 50 minutes away from like La Romana. So those are locations that people that want to visit the country usually know about the most. But the point is, when you live in a location like this where you're not close to anything really, the people that actually live there are usually going to be locals. People that have normal lives, normal income, normal jobs, and they're not out here trying to get the, for example, I need to have like this supermarket and I need to have this, I need to have that. It's just very local stuff, okay? I do have a supermarket, I do have a gym, but these are not fancy things at all. They're very, very basic. And you're probably wondering, Tommy, if you make a good income and you're able to make a good income even from Dominican Republic, why do you choose to live this way? The answer is, first of all, I live in the location where I live because I've done the whole thing before, where I lived in New York and I lived there for like 5 to 8 years. I spent, I don't know how long I spent in there. It was a long time. That's why I have such a huge gap. And then I also did the thing where I lived in Puerto Rico. I bought a house, big house. I remodeled it, fancy stuff. And I realized that I don't really care about any of that stuff. You know, what I really care about is being somewhere. I was born here, my people are here, my friends are here, my church is here, my family is here. I like being in the location where I am. I really enjoy it, okay? So for the most part, that's the why. It's not like I could say, well, if I live in Punta Cana, I could have so much stuff. But why do I care about stuff? You know, like, what does it matter to me if it takes me like less time to get to a supermarket to buy stuff I can get here too? Why does it matter to me if I can go to a tennis court or go to a hotel, go to a beach? That's just me, you know? So for me personally, that's why I live where I live, okay? If those core things were basically in Santo Domingo for me or Punta Cana for me, I would probably live in one of those locations. But no, it's here in San Pedro de Macoris. So for me, it is more than enough, and I'm very happy. Now, let me show you around the apartment. And I thought this was actually gonna give me an excuse to actually clean up, but it didn't. So I'm gonna show you the apartment as it is right now. So this is my apartment. As you can see, there is a lot of stuff everywhere. But this is actually cleaner than it usually is, by the way. So it's actually a lot more cleaner. However, you have right here the living room area. Sometimes I like to just like edit here because I don't always want to be in the office. This is the dining area, which apparently is like a table now. A coffee table, which I never drink coffee in. My Bible. The little TV stuff, a fan. You have my dishwasher, which I have not connected because I don't have the connections here. Dishwashers here are not commonly used whatsoever. Over here you have the kitchen area. Cabinets are always open because I'm a guy, you know how it is. You have to buy gallons here of water because you don't have, for example, water you can actually drink from the sink. You can't do that here. You'll die. So you need to buy gallons. These gallons cost like 30 pesos a pop for us here, but it might cost you $2 or like $1 somewhere else. But it's like less than $1 literally here. Microwave, have not hanged it yet, but I have to do it. Over here, you're gonna find my bedroom, which is a yoga mat right here. Let me turn the light on just so you guys can see what's going on here. It's just a very small room for the most part, but it's nice. Then over here you have the bathroom, which I should have some stuff closed, but this is like relatively like a small bathroom, as you guys can actually see right here. It's a small bathroom. You have like a little toilet, little sink thing, and like a little shower area. Over here you have my office. Over here is my office. One thing I do have is AC in both rooms. I could have AC, for example, in the living room, but it just wouldn't be worth it in my opinion. You have here my little wall thing of stuff. You have the office area here with some hoodies here because I do need hoodies sometimes. But that's basically the apartment. Like you can literally walk this apartment in literally less than like a minute or two. But it is 9,000 pesos per month, and it is more than enough than I actually need for myself. So that's the apartment tour. Okay. Zoom. So yeah, guys, that was literally like a 1-minute review of my apartment because my apartment isn't really that big. Now you're probably wondering, Tommy, if you are a little bit like me, you'll probably say that's pretty good. You know, you have 2 bedrooms, one is for sleeping, one is for working. You have a little office, it's nice stuff. You have a kitchen, nice stuff. And like, how long though are you planning to stay there? You know, because there are some things that I actually want. You know, I would like to live somewhere with a tiny bit more space, honestly, a tiny bit more space. But for what? To have, for example, an area just for my washer and dryer. And to have like an extra bedroom. You might be wondering, Tommy, where is your washer and dryer? Do you have like a laundromat in this area? The answer is no. There aren't usually like laundromats, so you have to like wash your clothes at your house. As you saw, like it's not in the house, it's actually in my balcony. In my balcony, I live on the second floor. I actually have, for example, my washer and dryer stacked up, and it works just fine. Usually in apartment buildings like this, you can actually put them up like on the roof, and it's like an area for that. However, I don't feel comfortable putting my stuff up there because someone can actually just come in and just probably like steal it. But that's basically it. On top of that, do you get afraid of like power outages? Where I live, we do have power outages every now and then. It's very true. I live in a small town, guys. So what I do is I have an inverter. So the inverter has 2 batteries, and those 2 batteries are constantly charged. And if I lose, for example, like there's an outage, I can still have like power for like a day or two, no problem. And the battery usually, I mean, the light usually comes back in like a day
or like a few minutes or like a few hours. Like it's never really like a big problem unless you have a hurricane, then that's different. But it's pretty comfortable here, very comfortable for the most part.
And to have like an extra bedroom so I can actually grow in. But that's for later on, maybe like in 2-3 years potentially. But who actually knows, okay? But for the most part, the reason why I choose to live here is because as just like a guy living on his own, it's more than enough. If I had 3 bedrooms now, it would just be 1 bedroom I would basically never go into. I can tell you that because I had 3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, big massive kitchen, like a 4-car garage. I had that before and I didn't really use it whatsoever. But this space, I utilize almost all of it. I don't even use the living room that often, honestly, because I'm either working or I'm outside for the most part. But for the most part, if I do get married, God willing, things will change. So this is a house that can fit, for example, like a small family of like 1 and 2 and maybe like a small baby. But in the meantime, what I'm actually am thinking is I'll probably stay here for between 12 to 24 months. And it might be even less time. Even less time. And if I can find myself an apartment that has 3 bedrooms, that would be clutch. I'm not planning to actually switch to a 2 bedroom for the sense of, well, now this one's a little bit better and that. No, I don't really care about that. What I do care about is, for example, if I do, well, not I, because that would be a we, because I just live here. And if I do move, it would be because it's a we, right? For the most part. If it's just I'll stay here for a while, like a while. Don't really care. But if it is a we, then we would basically look for something with like 3 bedrooms. Because one thing I'm not a big fan of is moving. I moved in 2 years about 4 to 5 times, and moving sucks. Absolutely sucks. So I want to avoid that. So if I find, for example, like a room, well, an apartment, we find an apartment with like 3 bedrooms, then that's great, because I can have 1 bedroom is for sleeping, 1 bedroom is for working, and another bedroom, it can be as temporary use for whatever we want to. But if we do have kids, then for example, we can kind of utilize that space up to 2 to 3 kids in that room. And then we can kind of like figure out like, well, do you want to buy something or do you want to build something? And that's like something to think about, okay? Now you probably never heard that before from someone saying, what do you mean 1 bedroom for 2 kids or 3 kids? That's kind of crazy. The answer is no. I'm not, the more I read, guys, and the more I'm figuring things out, it's not like I'm going to buy a house that has like 2 bedrooms and then fit like 5 kids or 6 kids in 1 bedroom. That's like a little too much. But for the most part, people tend to think like they need so much, like so much, and it's obviously not true. So temporarily, you can have a bedroom, like an extra bedroom for like 2-3 kids. Kids do not care. And then eventually, once the kid becomes like 5 to 7, then that's more different. That's when you want to be like, let's start looking around for certain things. Okay, we're gonna buy, we're gonna rent, or we're gonna build, and then we consider things. But one thing I don't want to do is make any rush decisions. And I'll probably cover this stuff like in another video because this is just a video about me showing you my apartment tour here. And those are like a little sneak peek at my plans. So I'll probably rest up there. But if you are looking to come to Dominican Republic to actually live here, I do recommend a few things, okay? I don't recommend you live where I live. Because if you're not a local, then you don't really know any spots and you don't know where to stay away from and where to actually go. Okay, that's very important. So for the most part, I would recommend a nice place, but don't assume that nice means the best. Because sometimes when foreigners come from the outside, they tend to think like, well, I need to be like in a closed off community, like gated, because people are like gonna rob me. It's not really like that, okay? It's not really like that. But you get like a nice apartment that you can actually afford and that you feel safe in. And then as you get accustomed to the culture, maybe between 1 to 2 to 3 years, then you can kind of decide like, okay, I feel pretty comfortable. Like when I lived in Puerto Rico, my first apartment was like a very nice basic apartment, and I was like, I feel pretty fine here. And then I moved to another one, and it was like, yeah, it's like less, but it's more than enough that I need. And then when I moved to my house, it was like a nice area, with older folks, and I was pretty fine, but it wasn't gated. I never lived anywhere gated or paying, for example, like a lot of money. It was never that, okay? It was never that for the most part. But guys, that is it for this video. If you want more videos like this, let me know in the comments down below. And by the way, that's it. That's all I got. That's all I got for you guys. Here's another video. Peace. I'm sorry about the mess. I'm sorry.